I wish I could have found a picture of him wearing a Detroit jersey, but I couldn't. I didn't have nothing.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Oh, never get sick of hearing that crack of the
No,
bat.
it's becoming like a part of the show. I mean, it's like our signature moment. Besides the Death Star theme tune, which is pretty awesome too.
It is Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment. I always forget to say that.
I forget to say it too. We're
Up
so excited
top.
to get into the content. We didn't
Right.
talk about it.
But I just, thanks to everybody. We had actually in the last couple weeks had a few comments on the thing. It's like people are like, oh, I got like a collection of magazines that goes deep into this. And it was about some of the Red Wings stuff.
It was Wally Kilray.
Was it Red Wings?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, we're like,
I didn't even know there was a Sports Illustrated article about him.
It's like, holy cow!
I never missed.
Bro,
I never saw that. I just want to read the article.
that and send it over.
Yeah, I just want to read the article.
I wanted to see what it is.
Well, I'm a junkie for the information.
Yeah,
I was telling a lady today about.
I want to read it.
About the process of putting the book together. It kind of took me back in time.
Yeah.
And when I was doing these books, literally all I was doing was looking. I was looking for, game programs, match books. I mean, I told her, I said, you know what it's like whenever you write a report on a subject.
Yeah.
There's every subject, almost every single subject ever has been covered by a book of some nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you at least have some kind of a boundaries by some other book that's written. So if you're looking for information, you're like, oh, I got to go find this book. Well, in the case of this subject, there was no books.
No,
there was nothing on the internet.
Where no man has
it's
gone
literally,
before.
There has not been any.
You're all
researcher.
Star Trek in this shit.
That's what it was. I felt like I was Captain Kirk, or at least his sidekick or something. And I was like, Scotty, we're gonna find this. But they
beam me up. We gotta let people know.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it was for a year and a half, especially when it came to the players. All I did was every single day go to the library every day and just read news. I just started from a year before 1930, basically late 1933. And then I went all the way through 1936. So it was that bracket of time. And I just read every day's sports section. And I just printed every time I came across anybody or anything that had anything to do with the story. And I just printed. And I would look for match books. I would look for article, game programs. I would look for anything. Every single day was part of my research routine every single day to look for anything on eBay that was related to this subject.
You were a Detroit Tiger and a City of Champions archaeologist.
That's
and
what
you were
what it felt like.
Brushing the dust off of things very slowly and uncovering things.
Yeah. Whether it was on a scrap, but the thing is, I was acquiring matchbooks. I was acquiring everything I could, but I was just acquiring it for the information.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you're running up against collectors who are buying the stuff to hang on a frame on their wall.
Right.
So you're having to bid up to
no, but there's a story inside of that matchbook.
That
I just want to read and share with people.
Exactly. So a lot of times I would acquire some of this super expensive memorabilia, scan it, and then just to add it to my collection and then sell it back on eBay,
Yeah.
And so that was because I was just after information.
You're a poor young college student. That's all.
Well, this was after when I was at,
you're a broke author.
Yeah. Broke author. Say probably even worse. And so that's what I mean. So
you don't apply, you can't get grants at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just purely piece by piece. And every time I came across a player, if there was an article where there's talking about 3 or 4 different players, I would make 4 copies of it. And then I had a bin that I would just, every time I came across a player's name, I would sort that whatever scrap of information into that player's file. And so I had when it was done, I had 5 bins of folders. And because I would make multiple copies of the ones that were mentioned each player, so that when the time came to write their stories, I had every single scrap of information about that player that I had scraped together and their photos and everything in their folder. And that's when it was super easy to cross-reference different facts and say, well, this over here is saying this over here is saying that. What's the truth of the matter, and try to come to that, thing. So
did you do that with the Dewey Decimal System?
Well, I'm very familiar with the Dewey Decimal System.
But kids today aren't.
No. Have you ever seen seen UHF with Conan the Librarian?
I love the Dewey Decimal System.
Well, he says that in the movie. He goes, the kid goes, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where this book is?" And it's got Conan, but it's like it's a Weird Al Yankovic parody.
Right.
So it's got Conan. He's standing there with a sword, and he's like, and he grabs the kid and he lifts him up by one hand. He's like, "Don't you know you're Dewey Decimal System?" Yeah. The kid's like, "I'm sorry." But yes, I got very familiar with that long ago, and but anyways, the reason I tell that story is because I'm like, that's what a junkie I am at for this kind of information. So he's, a gentleman's messages that he's got a Sports Illustrated article that's mentioning Wally Kilray from 1936. I'm like, I never even knew that article existed.
Well, that's been one of the funnest things about doing this project with you, is that like cousins and relatives and grandsons and nieces and nephews and families and in-laws of people that are involved with the story. Because many of the people, almost all of the people, I don't know if there's any champions left. I don't know.
Well, there's relatives all over the place,
but the relatives are chiming in.
I'm friends with them on Facebook and stuff.
And I love that they chime in and they say, "Oh my goodness, no one is sharing this story.
Yeah,
thank you guys for sharing this story." And
we're ahead of the curve because one of these days it's gonna come back, and people are gonna be like, "This is the show and this is the books and all that brought it back."
Absolutely our honor to be part of this party.
Yeah. And there was a lady today the lady I was telling about my organizational plan for the books. She actually has a signed. The reason why the conversation came up is she has a signed Normie Smith, the goalie of the Red Wings. She has a signed Normie Smith hockey glove.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Louise.
And she's like, this has got to be worth a lot of money, because she knows who Normie Smith is. That's what really got us talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I go, to me, it's priceless. I mean, it's like the most valuable thing you can find. I go, but to the rest of the 99% of Detroit fans, they have no idea of this story. And Normie Smith is just a footnote in there, in a maybe a footnote that gets credit for the marathon game. That it's not. I mean, they're not paying anything for that.
Yeah.
I was like, I got the most valuable newspaper in my opinion, in all of the history of sports, which is one of those City of Champions newspapers where it has the spread of all the teams. I got that for $10, and it's mint condition. It's in my opinion, it's the most valuable sports section, the most valuable issue of any sports section ever made. It is that. Well, yeah, it's got the City of Champions laid out.
Oh yeah. That's the
cover with
type,
the original in mint condition. I got it for $10. My max bid was $999.99, and I got it for $10. I got it for $9.99.
Oh wow, right on.
No bidders. I got it for $10.
And that's just what breaks your heart. I wish you had paid $900.
I did too. Yeah.
I'm glad you only had to pay $9.
Yeah, but I wish it would. Yeah.
But people, and that because time and again we say that such an underrated story, such an underappreciated story, and that's just why we do it, because we're having fun. We like to hang out.
Yeah.
And then talk about this, and every time we get together, something new unfolds. We got some stuff we'll talk about after we get to our topic today, because we're talking about scouting, and the Tigers, and the birth of the scouting system and the birth of
the way that the Tigers were built,
for Major League Baseball and the Tigers, and Bob
Coleman's our
Goldman.
subject.
Coleman.
Goldman. Come on,
Goldman.
You're screwing with me.
I am. No, it's the Birdcage.
Oh, okay. No,
no, it's like the movie The Birdcage.
Oh, okay. No, I've seen it.
Robin Williams.
I forgot that scene.
Their name is Coleman, but they don't want to sound too Jewish.
Oh, I got you. Now I remember what you're talking about. Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, we don't know where we live until somebody pronounces our name."
Oh yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Anyway,
I know what you're talking. I remember that scene.
All right. Anyway, but it's Bob Coleman.
Yes,
Goldman,
Bob Coleman. No, you got it right the first time. Let's stick with that.
I can't help myself. It's a reflex.
Well, it's
comedy. Comedy reflex.
You got it right the first time.
So, but we're going to talk about Bob today.
And what's interesting along the same lines what you just said about finding new stuff and whatever is, when I originally wrote this section on Bob Coleman in this book, at the time that I wrote it, I mean, I recognized that he was like an important aspect of the Tigers minor league development system. I mean, he was, I could, you just from the basic data, you can see, just the basic information that I gleaned. His name had come up numerous times, over the course of just in passing reference to such and such.
Yes.
And so you could tell that he had an influence. So I include him in the book, and at the time I wrote him into the book, it's like, you're just really just putting him in there because you're just like, I know he's important, but I don't know exactly how he fits with everything else going on. I know he's a minor league manager.
So it's
right. And here's this, and he's got a bunch of statistics, which are great, but I didn't really know at the time how exactly the machine clicked with his, with his role in the machine, so to speak.
So now this is interesting. What was the year you started? Because you did your paper in college. Well, when did you start in earnest work on this book? What was the year?
This work began on this book and the players about 2010.
All right. So 2010. We're here at 2014.
When the book is published, yeah.
2024. Holy crap.
Yeah, but 2014 is when this book was published.
So it's been, and it's been 10 years since the book has been published. Information has progressed and changed exponentially.
Well, the thing about the information, especially with baseball, right? Yeah. Especially with baseball, and this is why I talk about the other baseball.
It's great. I love as we're doing this, we're finding more and more stuff.
This stuff comes online. I mean, even just looking at the
like, holy crap, where was this?
Just looking
where was this when I was digging through the
looking at the Champions Day page that Chris built, and that
you print out one of those microfiche, and it's soaking wet when you pull it out of the thing. It's a sopping, soaking wet mess that you don't want to smudge when you're printing those microfiches out of the basement of Wayne State.
Well, when I was doing it originally, it was such a huge deal to do.
When I was a kid,
microfilm, and now it's
had
like
to
easy.
Copy it with a quill. God,
yeah, no. When I was doing, I was plugging quarters in the machine. Now it's digital. So
it's all everything. Yeah. All this is like digital, and more is getting digitized. And as we do this story, there's so much more that's unfolded.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Beyond the books, which is fun.
Yes. So for me, it is fun. It's fun for me too, because now, like, just going over it today, and that's what I'm saying. The thing about baseball and baseball analytics and statistics and all this is that is that the way that baseball information is able to be processed now is so much more light years ahead of where anything was for the last, even like 5 years ago.
Right.
Because now you can just click on, you can break down all kinds of data and information very quickly. And it's, and so you have access to, in this case, it really helped me put together the pieces of his role. And it's a significant one. Like I say, I knew he was important when I put him in the book, but now it dawns like a light bulb moment today.
So what do we need to know about Bob Coleman?
So the thing to understand about again, we are talking about the birth of the Detroit Tigers farm system here. Okay. This is the era. A lot of times we're so conditioned to accept the way that the baseball, like the Tigers have Toledo Mud Hens, the Erie, they have a team in the Erie.
I pray to Christmas somebody from the Tigers is listening, but all right. Go
ahead. But the thing is,
we should know this.
Well, yeah, but we're so conditioned to like just thinking that the way that the Tigers system operates today, where there's like the Toledo Mud Hens of their AAA team, they have the Erie team, for AA, and it just you have like this rigid, sanitized system that just exists today and like it's always existed. Right. It's just like we just kind of tend to, it doesn't, and to fill in the gaps of areas that we don't understand, we just kind of assume that that's the way it was. I mean, at least that's me. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not trying to assume everybody else, but I have a feeling that people are in that same mindset. And so what you're talking about here again is the genesis. This is the time when things are just being born and developed. And that's why I think it's so important, so interesting here. So Bob Coleman, I have no idea. This is the gap in the story I don't understand. I don't know where or why he was connected to he first became connected with the Tigers. But because he started off as a catcher. He was a minor league catcher in the early part of the 1900s. So he was a catcher. He was like basically a career minor leaguer. He had 119 games in the major leagues. But to get a picture of Bob Coleman, we have a picture of him actually. But to get a sort of mental picture of who Bob Coleman was, this guy is the prototypical manager out of a movie. Okay, he's this guy that you would see in any he is this former tough as nails catcher who was never really a big major league player,
right? But
he was he was a minor league and major league manager for decades. Like you're talking 35, I think it was 35 years. He was I got it right here, 38 years as a manager. 4 of those years were in the major leagues, but he was not in the major leagues. It's like because he was like some big, he's a 3 years in the major league. So 35 years in the minors, 3 years in the majors during World War II. They only brought him up to the major leagues because they just needed a guy to fill in a gap for Boston, the Boston Nationals. But this guy is like your like lifetime minor league manager, but like say toughest nails guy. When he retired at the end of when his last year was 19, he was a manager from 1919 through 1957. 1919 to 1957. And after he left in 1957, he was the all-time leader in minor league wins.
That's amazing. It's
all-time minor league winningest manager.
You gotta applaud that and just hope for the best.
Yes.
If I could have 3/4 of that, I'd be happy.
So imagine your guy's coaching you in like 1952 or something, right?
Your career ends. You're coaching high school football, baseball. You come back and you get back in the middle. Holy
your
crap, he's still here
by him or something. Imagine you're some 18-year-old kid in baseball. That's like that's getting coached by him. This guy's been coaching already for like 32 years, and he had like a 10-year minor league career as a player. This guy is your old like salt dog, like this guy is just sweating baseball out of his pores. You know what I mean? Like you would have to be to see that, to like sit there for 100 or so games every year for that duration of time.
Oh my God.
To see the amount and names and players that have come through from 1919 through 1957. I mean, you're taking it all the way into like the post World War II.
It changes
immensely. But this guy saw it all. Okay. And so even in his day, like even when he was, so he'd already been coaching for from 1919 through 1927 when he hooks up with the Tigers. So he'd been coaching the minor leagues for 8 years. He's already a decade into he's already a veteran manager by the time the Tigers signed him up in 1928. And so what's interesting is, and I did not know, this is a part I did not know, is that, I don't know who he connected with, because this guy was in with the Tigers. Okay. And I'll give you an example. In 1928, the team that was really the focus here, the Tigers had again, this is how the minor league system was being born. So the Tigers had they had a couple other smaller farm teams that they were affiliated with, like sort of like entry level teams. But 1928 is when they bought there was like, back then it wasn't AAA and AA for like the highest level of the minors. You had Class A and you had Class B. Those were the two highest levels, they called them. And so the Tigers Class B team was the Evansville Hubs. All right. And so the Evansville Hubs were their Class B team. Okay. So like their second tier down from the highest level. And so Bob Coleman bought that team for the Tigers. So he was the guy that bought the team, and then he was in charge of running that team and managing these players that they brought into the system. And for the Tigers, like he was the guy that he was basically like the general manager and manager of this team. And so that's what I'm saying. So like he would have to have, so I have no idea how he connected with the Tigers, but they would have to have a pretty significant faith in this guy if they're going to give him X amount of dollars to buy a minor league team and run it on their behalf. I mean, they have to think very highly of him. It wasn't it wasn't like some random guy where like, oh, he's been around for 8 years, let's just hire him. I mean, Frank Navin's trusting him with a significant investment to buy this team and to run it for him. And in Frank Navin, this is a detail to understand. Frank Navin, he was one of the only managers in baseball that didn't like he wasn't a millionaire or whatever outside of the game. Like he didn't own like Wrigley's chewing gum and then he just did baseball for the fun of it. No, Frank Navin, his business was running the Tigers.
Yeah.
So if the Tigers struggled financially, then so did he, right? If he was struggling financially, then so was the Tigers. He was interwoven with the team. So when it came to the minor league teams, he was trying to get it there. The Tigers were trying to build an organization, a minor league organization on the Branch Rickey St. Louis Cardinals model. Tigers have been terrible, keep in mind, from in 1928 when they bought the Evansville team. The Tigers had been dreadful for years. For years, right? They had no identity. The Tigers they're just a floundering organization. They had not done anything since Ty Cobb was long gone by this point. Not long ago. He left the Tigers in 1926. So a couple years removed from the end of the Ty Cobb era in Detroit. And so there you have so the Tigers they're looking for anything they can do to get involved, where they're like, oh, the new big thing is Branch Rickey. You have to own your own minor league teams and develop your own players. Right. So this is the moment where the Tigers are getting into that realm. Right. I mean, they've already got a couple scouts out. They have the genesis of the scouting with, Jack Zeller and these other guys we've talked about, Eddie Goosetree and them. They've already got their scouts starting to, roam the country. But now we're talking about the teams themselves. And so the Evansville team in 1928 becomes their Class B team. And so, like I say, Bob Coleman is the manager. So the players that came through, and I've left my notes at the office, as you know, but this is where I wish I had them with me at this exact second, because I actually had the list by year of each player. And but you have the players that we know from the 35 Tigers. I'm just kind of going through them. I've got the thing in front of me right now. The players that are going through from 1928 through 1931 through this Evansville team, right? These 4 years, it's like every guy that would become cornerstones of the Tigers. Okay, it's like you have Hank Greenberg, Eldon Ocker, Tommy Bridges, Pete Fox, JoJo White. All Eldon Ocker, they all went through Bob Coleman.
So Bob had his hands on all this, saying
all these guys,
feeding them upstream,
and
how important is Bob
big time
to us winning that first World Series?
That's essential. That's what I'm trying to get at.
This is like, who has talked about this?
Nobody
ever pieced 1 and 2 and 3 together, because just seeing this,
yes,
this is an important.
This is the beginning of it.
This is the linchpin, hinchpin. This is what swings it to. It's like, here's that talent moving upstream.
Yes.
And if he wasn't there cultivating it and saying, they
wouldn't have gone to the next level.
You got to give him a try, or bring him up.
Yes. In fact, here's an article.
Tell me more about Bob.
Well, here's an example. I actually have an example of a real life situation where they contributed. Now, this is Jack Zeller. That the article is featured on, but Eldon Ocker himself talks about Bob. So Eldon Ocker, of course, just to refresh people's memory, he was a submarine pitcher for the 34 and 35 Tigers. And so, and actually Ronald Reagan credits Eldon Ocker with his big break in Hollywood.
Yes, really?
Yes, because Ronald Reagan was a Chicago broadcaster in 1934. And so before the 1934 World Series, Eldon Ocker granted him an interview. And he was the starting pitcher of one of those games. And so Eldon Ocker, in his personal memoirs called Sleeper Cars and Flannel Uniforms, which is one of the best baseball books you ever read.
All right.
Eldon Ocker in that book talks about how Ronald Reagan, like, I think he sent him a letter, or years later, said some kind of a thank you to him. Ronald Reagan said, your interview you gave me, because Ronald Reagan, he was a reporter for like the Iowa, like Des Moines, Iowa, some radio station in Des Moines, Iowa. But the fact that he was able to get Eldon Ocker, that starting pitcher of that game, to tell the Des Moines, residents, like, oh, this is what's about to happen. But Eldon Ocker was from there. So he was from, he's from Kansas. So he's from that general area. And so Reagan, in that book says it to him. But anyway, so Eldon Ocker was a pitcher for the 1934 and 35 Tigers. He was also the guy who, when they closed Tiger Stadium, Eldon Ocker was the guy who said this quote. He passed the flag from Tiger Stadium to Brad Ausmus to take the flag to Comerica Park from Tiger Stadium. He was there at the ceremony. He actually says, Brad, take this flag to Comerica Park, your new home, and take with it the boyhood dreams, the perseverance, and the competitive desire it takes to become a Detroit Tiger. Never forget us, for we live on those that carry on this Tiger tradition and who so proudly wear the Old English D. That was Eldon Ocker.
What year was this?
That was when they closed Tiger Stadium. That was their final night.
Oh,
when they closed Tiger Stadium, Eldon Ocker passed the Tiger Stadium flag to Brad Ausmus, who took the flag, because Brad Ausmus, I know he was a manager, but he was also the catcher for the team at the time. And so Eldon Ocker, who's like 90 or 80 something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what year was this?
It was in I have it right here, 1999.
All right, yeah.
Yes, actually, the quote continues. He says, he said, to wear this uniform is a great privilege and an honor. On behalf of the old Tigers, we ask the young Tigers of today and tomorrow to wear this uniform with pride, and never on the field or off allow your personal conduct to defile or disgrace the great tradition this uniform represents. And always remember, Brad, once a Tiger, always a Tiger. Thank you, and God bless all the Tigers of the past, present, and the future. And God bless the fans who make all this possible. That's Al Knocker. So that's a signature guy.
Talking about, but here's the what I want to get into is the Old English D, and talking about and like saying and calling it, because that's like it's such a Detroit thing.
Oh, it's iconic.
It's like
Detroit itself.
Yeah. Magnum PI, right?
It's
Tom Selleck, Magnum PI.
It's my favorite show of all time.
It's because he's like. He's not really a Detroit guy, but he just loves the Tigers.
Yeah.
He's got the Detroit ties, but it's like.
Do you know on Magnum that Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker made an appearance on that show? That's one of the greatest episodes ever. Anyways, but it's like I've
always contemplated getting that. That Old English D on the forearm that so many of the rock stars get. I got a couple pieces of ink. Do you have any tattoos? No,
you got the Irish graphics.
I do. I got my family coat of arms, and then
you get that City of Champions logo on your chest, bro.
Dude,
get the prison tat style across your chest. Get that tattooed on your chest. Tat. No, but it'll be the big chest tattoo, like a prison
I'm not going to do it across my
full chest.
I'm like a
Conor McGregor.
I'm furry. I'm a Sasquatch.
So what?
You gotta,
shave it and then get the tat.
Yeah, I have to shave it down all the time.
But just one time just to get it tatted.
And then they're wiping me down in the old man's home.
Whatever.
What the fuck is this?
It's all good.
But
so anyways, so
shutting me up.
So I want to progress because there's a couple things I want to read here.
I want to digress.
Okay, go ahead. Digress. You can digress. You got the freedom of this show.
No, but just the tattoos, the Old English, the D, the old, all the like a lot of the rappers, the Bob, the Marshall.
Yeah.
They got that Old English D on their forearms. But I love that he mentioned that.
Yeah, it's a source of great pride.
To have the respect for the old, and that goes back to Tom and the Magnum PI thing, and I love that he really pointed that out.
That was his speech he gave.
Yeah,
at the final closing night at Tiger Stadium.
Man.
That's why it's worth reading real quick. I know it was a little bit of a divergence.
No, it isn't. We gotta,
but anyway, so real quick, let me just
hang on.
Go ahead.
Let me
diverse spit, back. Bro. Go ahead and
spit. But Tiger Stadium, right? Brick Stadium evolved into Tiger Stadium on that location. And then, finally went away. And then now we got Comerica Park. But at that old Tiger Stadium space, there's this interesting little ball field that
interesting is one choice of words, but go ahead.
There's a space.
They concreted over it.
There's a space there.
They put concrete over the grass.
Yeah.
They astroturfed the grass.
Did they astroturf?
They astroturfed the grass there, yes.
Are you a little... It sounds like you're mad about that.
I got to play softball on it before they did it. It was one of the greatest days of my life. On Champions Day.
Right?
On Champions Day. Will McDowell set it up the first Champions. It was the first Champions week. And we got to play softball there. And I want to give a little mention.
Where the hell was I?
Well, I didn't even know you then. But
I know.
It was back when I first got out to Detroit, and it was one of the greatest days of my life because
we might have known each
it's
other.
Worth mentioning for my friend Kevin Bush, one of my best friends in the world. He went out. We were going out to that lot to go play softball that day.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, bet me the first round of drinks after the game. He said, I'm not going to make an out today. And the two of us, we got to go play baseball and it was dirt. There was no stadium. It was all dirt. And Maven Stadium grounds crew had built up bases. It made it a softball field.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest days of my life.
Sketchy at best.
One of the greatest things I've ever done. And my friend literally that day did not make an out. And he was like
nice.
we were playing slow pitch softball.
Yeah.
And he was on the mound pitching a couple innings. He was like an elite hurler. He even said to me after game, he said,
gorgeous.
He said, I felt like I was controlling the wind. He was in the zone. He got in the zone.
Ooh.
He got in the
He's
zone.
A wind bender.
Yes. He got in the zone on Tiger Stadium grounds.
Love it.
On the dirt. Like on the same grounds that Ty Cobb and them were playing. My friend Kevin Bush, I'll never forget it. He was coming up to me. He's like, I can feel it, bro. I'm in the zone. I'm like, you're in the zone.
I like Comerica Park. It's a nice ballpark. Comerica Park is it's a nice ballpark. It's a nice ballpark.
Sanitized.
It's a nice ballpark. It's got a whiskey bar. I'm a sucker for a whiskey.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a tourist. It's a nice ballpark. But there's something about Tiger Stadium and the history of it. It was sad to see it go. But I like that there's like that regardless of it's concrete, it's concreted over and it's astroturf or whatever, but there's still something of a semblance of it's there. there's still a respect of it. There's still an acknowledgement of
Where? Who acknowledges it?
There's a field there still.
Yeah, but where's any discussions about any pilgrimages there for any ceremonial
Besides
events?
us.
Yeah, there's nobody. There's that
Dude,
ground has been erased.
We are.
They stripped. It's like I mean, it's like there's a field there. There's people that play. You could say you can make a case that there's like kids that play baseball or whatever, but the thing about it is like it just feels like from the very inception of Tigers, from the very moment that they announced that Comerica Park was about to be built, that everything that could have been done that was possible to erase the soul of that stadium was done. To strip it, to gut it, to pave it, to do whatever they could to get rid of it.
Really?
Yeah, that's my feelings on the matter. Yes.
All right.
So I feel like there's no celebrations there. There's no commemoratives of anything, whatever anniversaries or any events are all. I mean, there's no. Like I say, it's in Comerica Park. I mean, it's a ballpark. It's sanitized. Sort of. I mean, it is what it is. It to me. I'm not going to. I mean, it is what it is. It's a reflection of modern day baseball as it exists today. That's what it is. And if you like that, then that's your personal preference.
Good for you, Jamie.
Yes.
Good for you, Jamie.
Everybody has their own opinions. Give me the dirt and sawdust of the old days any day. Give me the unsanitized version.
But there's a little bit of an acknowledgement. It hasn't been bulldozed over.
Yeah, there's a ball. They play baseball there. Yeah.
There's still a little bit. There's I think like a flagpole and maybe like a fence or something. It's very minimal. It's absolutely minimal, but there's still an acknowledgement.
I'll say one more sort of aspect. I'll say one more aspect on it is I preferred it when the Navenfield's grounds crew was doing that stadium and they turned it into a softball field where people could just come and play. When that was there,
it's a closed. It's
closed. It's a you have to have like a subscription or something.
You got to live there.
Yeah, you got to live there and stuff. Back then, I used to go down there every once in a while. And in fact, it wasn't just that day when we played softball. I used to pop down there every once in a while to go like have like a meeting about like there was somebody one time that wanted to do a documentary on the City of Champions. So we went down there. We were just playing catch there. And there was people that were like getting married there. There was people that was like, it was just an open public lot where you could play baseball on the grounds where the greats played games. And you could like literally just go down there and have play catch there. It was like, it felt like there was like, even though the stadium was gone, at least then, you were on the same like natural grass zone that the same grounds that that these people had once played on, that the soul was there. But it's like, once you concrete it over or whatever it is, I don't even know how it is. I know there's like an AstroTurf, but it's just not, it's sort of modern, I guess you'd call progress or whatever. But
what was the other image you gave me? You gave me a second image.
Well, that's the ballpark. So that's the Evansville ballpark.
Ballpark.
Yeah, that's where the Hubs.
All right, talking about vintage ballparks. So how does this tie into what we're talking about?
Well, it's the Evansville ballpark. I just threw that in there to show what it looked like back in this picture was taken. It was a postcard from 1938. All right. And so, but anyways, the article I wanted the quote I wanted to read off.
Before I went off on my crazy tangent.
Well, so the quote that I wanted to read was for Eldon Ocker, who was a submarine pitcher, which meant he threw basically underhand.
Oh,
yeah, he threw underhand, and so that's where he really found his effectiveness.
How the ladies do it?
Well, he used to take crap about that. He said in Sleeper Cars and flannel uniforms.
Ladies play that.
Eldon Ocker says that they're said in Sleeper Cars and flannel uniforms that the third base coach is for the Yankees.
He'd be like, probably, how about you go over there and see if you can hit it, motherfucker?
No, his third base, the third base coach for the Yankees' name was
Sorry for the French.
The third base coach for the Yankees name was Art Fletcher. Okay. And Art Fletcher the Yankees were notorious for just being able to torment like their opponents and stuff, especially weaker opponents like the Tigers who were getting slaughtered all the time. And so Babe Ruth had struck out versus Eldon Ocker so Art Fletcher came to Eldon Ocker and said to him, as he was walking out there, he said, hey, Rook, hey, Rook, the Babe's kind of upset with you. And he said, what for what? And he said, well, he's been struck out plenty of times. He's just never been struck out by a girl before. Right? He's never been struck out by a girl
like
before.
That. I like that.
And so that infuriated Ocker.
Hell yeah.
And Ocker ended up pitching fairly well as a result. And Mickey Cochran, as a result, realized that Eldon Ocker pitched pitched better when he was angry. And so Mickey Cochran started doing
angry elf.
Mickey Cochran
messed up stuff to him.
So Mickey Cochran started. So there was a huge divergence from where. So Mickey Cochran used to torment Eldon Ocker and make him like just rile him up all the time. But for Schoolboy Rowe, he was like, not that he was super nice and Schoolie, you're the best pitcher. You'll get him next time, Schoolie. You know, like he's just super nice to him. But for Eldon, he would do whatever he could to get under his skin. He himself would do it. But anyways, back to Bob Coleman. It was Bob Coleman right in this quote in Eldon Ocker's Sleeper Cars and Flannel Uniforms, where Eldon Ocker says, I was convinced to drop my throwing motion down even further by Bob Coleman, my manager, when I was playing for the 3I League. He said, I pitched batting practice for about 5 days, throwing underhand, and all the guys were moaning and complaining. Based on that, it seemed to be a pretty effective way to frustrate hitters. So it was Bob Coleman then the league was called the 3I League because it was the Illinois, Indiana, Iowa League.
Oh, fair play.
And so that's why they called it the 3I League. But he credits Bob Coleman for his delivery, right? And then here's a sort of a follow-up article to this, and Bob Coleman's not mentioned in this, but it mentions Jack Zeller, and I like this article for this moment in the show because it talks about how this system was functioning at this time. Because and I'll read it. It says, this is Eldon Ocker. No, this is the Detroit Times from November 24th, 1935. So this is after the Tigers won the World Series. They're just writing a bunch of articles about, going back in time a little bit.
Yep.
So it was part of Navin's baseball creed never to interfere with the direction of the team by his managers, and he placed the same confidence in his other workers. He proved himself a great executive he must be talking about the death of Frank Navin, because they're looking back in the past. So he proved himself a great executive by sidetracking his own opinions when men charged with definite responsibilities were firm in theirs. The Detroit Ball Club brought up Ocker when it did because Navin followed Jack Zeller's judgment, not his own. In the last months of the 1933 season, Detroit needed a pitcher. Navin got in touch with Zellers, one of Detroit's Western scouts, and told him to send Dick Schultz, a Beaumont pitcher, to Detroit. You don't want Schultz. Ocker is the pitcher you want, Zellers told his boss. No, I want Schultz, retorted Navin. I tell you, Ocker is the man who will do you more good, insisted Zellers. All right, replied Navin. If you feel that positive about it, I'll follow your advice. After all, I'm paying you to know. So Ocker came to Detroit. And so it was characteristic of Navin that when Ocker arrived, he told the circumstances of his selection. You are not the pitcher I wanted, Navin told the young right-hander. You must understand you are here under rather severe trial. If you don't make good, I will enjoy telling Zellers he made a mistake. So he's saying, I don't even want you here, but they told me you're the guy, so I'll enjoy being right.
Yeah.
You're the guy I didn't want. So anyways, it kind of shows you that. I like that because it's a little aside into how that system was functioning, which was Coleman's managing these guys, Ocker's in his tutelage, Zeller's the overall director of the entire system, and Coleman's telling him, this Ocker's the guy you want, and Zeller's telling Navin that Coleman's telling me, I'm telling you, and so there's that. So anyways, so what's interesting, so that's sort of like the interesting, the next sort of level up when talking about Coleman is that all these guys are flowing through the Evansville team from 28, 29, 30, 31. And so, but by 1931, the team is basically like, it's in the middle of now you're in the Great Depression, right? I mean, 1929 stock market crash, 1930, 31, the country's, deteriorate, slipping into the depression. So these last couple of years, the Evansville team is just doing terrible financially, just absolutely falling apart. And so by the end of 31, like the city was actually raising the rent on the stadium. And so the team actually gets moved to Decatur, Illinois. They're still part of the 3I League, but they get moved to Decatur for just this 1 year. And they don't even make it through 1932 before the Decatur team, the team folds outright. And so but the Tigers, this is kind of what's interesting, is that the Tigers, not wanting to just have Bob Coleman just kind of like vanish into the winds.
Yeah.
They bring Bob Coleman to Detroit to be a coach with the Tigers in 1932 at the end of the year. Right. So he's just a coach. He's not their manager.
Bob seems like a guy who's on it, he should be somewhere in the system adding his input.
Yeah. So that's where they're like, they didn't want to lose him to just cut him loose and let him go find a job. So they actually hired him as like some, I don't know, batting coach or whatever it was. but they bring him to Detroit. That's his first taste in the major leagues as a and now he's just a coach, on the Tigers.
Sure.
But then the very next year, they send him to their Class A team in Beaumont, Texas.
Oh, hey,
and then
make something happen over here.
And this is what's interesting is that
Find us good stuff.
So Del Baker. So this is what we're going to talk about in the next show is that Del Baker is the manager of the Beaumont Exporters in Texas, Beaumont, Texas. And this 1932 Beaumont team is like a team for the ages. Like all these players that flowed from 1928, 29, 30, all the way through these lower, through the Class B level, they've all reached the 1932 team in Beaumont. And this Beaumont team is like a dream team. They have Hank Greenberg, Schoolboy Rowe, like all these guys are all there. There's a stack of teams. Yeah. And so there's a stack of these players.
These guys are all in the minors at this time.
They're all in 32. This 1932 Beaumont team
32 team.
is this elite stars. At the time, they don't know they're star-studded and fated to be like the team that goes on to become this 35 Tiger team.
All they know is Eddie Tolan is winning the gold medal.
They don't know that. Yeah. Oh, yes, they do know that in the Olympics.
In 32. Yes. All they know is Eddie's winning the gold for us in 32.
I'm sure
all they know is that they're playing baseball, having fun.
Yes.
And hey, that Detroit guy, Eddie Tolan's winning some gold.
So as we'll talk in more detail,
I'm just trying to do a little callback.
No, I get you. No, you hit it right because 1930, you hit it right on the head because Olympics goals with Eddie Tolan. But the 1932,
I love Eddie Tolan.
But the 1932 Beaumont team we're going to get into it on the next show.
Mm-hmm.
But this 1932 Beaumont team, all these players on this 1932, we're talking Hank Greenberg, Schoolboy Rowe, there's a bunch of guys in this Beaumont team. I've got this great team photo of all of them. They're all together. It's got Del Baker. It's got all of them on there. And so this
is the minor team.
This is the minor league team. This is their Class A team that's one step away from the majors.
Straight up. And this is the chunk of the dudes.
I think they won that Class A championship too. They're a bunch of studs. But these are the guys, they came through Bob Coleman. They went up to the Beaumont Exporters. I believe they won the championship, or they won the pennant, or that.
Bob joined them again.
Yes, and so they get but not in 1932. He went to the Tigers in 32.
Yeah,
and so in 32, Del Baker was the manager at Beaumont.
Yeah.
So at the end of 32, like the beginning of 1933,
why do I know Del Baker's name?
We're gonna talk about him. He's a manager with the Tigers, and for the
World
name
Series.
Is
okay, all right, fair play. That's why I was going.
He's a major factor. Yeah, he's the third base coach.
Let me go back. I know nothing about nothing.
Yeah,
I'm
nothing about
sports, and I lose some stuff here and there because I'm not.
Well,
I'm not as deep into it as you are. All right, so Del, he was there.
So this is what the thing is to understand is to focus for a moment to understand this concept. 32. So all the way up through 32.
Yeah,
it's Bob Coleman at Class B. And it's Del Baker at Class A. Okay, so they're funneling through Bob Coleman. He's passing the baton to Del Baker at Class A. Okay, so now at the end of 32, the Evansville team and the Decatur team, the Class B team folds. Okay, from not having enough money.
Oh,
right, and so Bob Coleman goes to the Tigers. Right,
that's a lot of money.
Follow me.
Yeah,
I want to finish the thought.
Go.
Bob Coleman goes to the Tigers in 32 at the same time that Del Baker is winning this, they have this all-star team. I think they won the championship at 32 for Class A Beaumont. Okay. Now in 33 at the beginning of the year, that whole squad of Beaumont players all gets promoted to the major leagues.
Oh,
okay. In 1933,
wow.
That super team from Beaumont gwhat promoted. And so does Del Baker.
Should we do the whole next episode on this shift?
That's where we're going to get into, but I want to give you that we're talking about Bob Coleman's
role
in this shift.
I love that.
So
all right,
Bob Coleman goes from the Tigers as a coach, and he goes to Beaumont to fill Del Baker's position
because
from having departed.
Along with a crap ton of
So that's what I'm trying to say is all these dudes. Yes. So this was this class of talent that Bob
what year
Coleman,
was this?
That's what I'll say it again. So just we'll get through. So just to progress the whole thing, okay?
Because I've been paying attention.
So 28 through. So from 1928, when he acquires the Evansville team for the Tigers.
Yeah.
This is like their first Class B team that they have as an affiliate team, right? So these players all come through Bob Coleman, and he passes them on to Beaumont with Del Baker. Del Baker, they become like a super team, right? And then Del Baker,
super cops. I don't know what it is with you guys.
But as he passes the baton in 32, that Evansville team folds, which became Decatur, folds.
Money thing, yeah.
Yes, and Bob Coleman goes up to the Tigers just to hold on to his contract, so he's got a place with the Tigers to coach.
So he doesn't hurt us anywhere else.
Well, so he doesn't. They don't lose him. They love the guy. And so then when the super team from Beaumont that he had helped to shape at a lower level guys,
super cops,
they all go up to the Tigers. And then Bob Coleman goes from the Tigers back to Beaumont because that's where he slots in as the minor league coach. Whereas this rest of this team is now with the Tigers, and that's the beginning of the rise of the Tigers to the 34 and 35 championship.
Poised for that 34 series and the 35.
It's these guys that evolved. So so at 33, they're all rookies. They're all young.
How important is Bob Coleman to Detroit's baseball success?
Well, here we're laying it out right now.
We just said it, and you just said it. We just spent the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, he was the guy that they first passed through him.
He
passed the baton, and then he comes back to Beaumont.
Who has ever spent 40 minutes talking about Bob Coleman?
Nobody. This is the first on the internet. Yeah. And so, but it's trying to lay out, this is how, because it's from this position. Is from this position where Del Baker in the super squad goes up to the Tigers. This is really their first affiliate minor league class.
Really? Super squad?
Yeah, it's highly appropriate. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this is really the first like sort of Tigers affiliate draft class.
Yeah.
And like even my own self, this is why it's such kind of like a revelation to me, is because you think that the Tigers have been doing this for like 20 years, and they did to a certain extent. They had players coming from the minors, but not like this. This was like their first time that they had their own affiliate-owned team where they own the team, just like Branch Rickey did, just like where they had their own team. They developed their own players, and this squad of players all goes to the majors together as like this, this talented young core group of guys. They go up to the Tigers in 1933. But they're all rookies. They're unsuccessful. They don't pan out in their first year.
And Hank
Greenberg's not even a starter in the first year.
And prior to this, the Detroit Tigers were poop.
They were terrible.
Poop.
Yes, but they have this young class of guys going up.
Right.
And so they all this young.
You don't know.
But I'm trying.
People were like coming to the games, like average Joe tourist, buying their 25, 10-cent ticket to go to the game.
Yes.
Had no idea what they were going to see.
They had no idea. But the thing is, you have this young class that's going in. In 33, they were terrible. And it was Bucky Harris, who's like this, like kind of somewhat of a legendary manager.
Give me a boy named Bucky.
Yeah, well, that's all
I need.
So Bucky Harris is like basically run the team is not performing for him. And so he's their man. So his final year with the Tigers is 33, and he quits with just a couple games left in the 33 season because it's fallen apart for him. And so Del Baker becomes the manager of the Tigers for the last couple games in 33. And so now this like young super team that he came up with, he's the Tiger manager. So what's important to understand what this story is now is that when Navin goes after Mickey Cochran in 34, Mickey comes in as the new manager of the team and displaces Del Baker, who, for all these young guys, they're like, we came up, not only we come up with the minors, let me finish. Not only did we come up with Del Baker as our manager from Beaumont, we had the super team. Del Baker's our manager there. We came up to the majors with Del Baker. The manager of the Tigers didn't know how to utilize us, so he got, he left. Now Del's the head manager of this team. Now, but all of a sudden, Mickey comes in as the new manager.
And Mickey's got some dreams.
And Mickey's got the juice. He's got the juice. And so
he dragged them along.
So this is an important thing to understand is Del Baker has to, for the good of the franchise and organization, is like, look, I got to step down for the good of this organization.
All right, here's the thing.
And so he becomes the third base coach, as we'll talk about.
He
becomes the third base coach for the Tigers for 34, 35, and eventually he'll be the manager of the team when they win the World Series in 1940 or 45.
Del Baker and Bob Coleman. Without those two cats,
essential,
Detroit would not be the sports city it is today.
They're massive components.
Without those two guys.
Well, they're essential components.
It would not. The Tigers,
they were the
Tigers at 34 and 35 would not have happened.
Well,
as well as they did.
Well, exactly.
I would argue they would not. And then the rest of it, because the Lions piggybacked off of that, the Red Wings felt the pressure, piggybacked off of that, and the rest of the 30 champions, the rest of the 30 hacks,
they would have been. Yeah,
it was just that was just coincidental.
Yeah.
But
would they have got the attention that they got if they wouldn't for the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings, and Joe Louis
who would say the Detroit Police sharpshooters in 35 won a national championship.
We won 27 championships.
The Stroh's bowling team in 1935 won a national championship.
We won 27 championships.
Woo!
They're like, yeah, was any of the majors, the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings? They're like, no, we didn't win any of those. But we won 27 other ones.
So, but is there a plaque or is there a statue? Is there a remembrance of these two cats?
I think you know the answer to that question. There's nothing. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing.
You know what there is? No, Charles, you know what there is? There's one hell of a podcast.
So there is.
But that's exactly what the freak we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
I said the other word earlier a couple times. But no, that's why we're here to share the news about these incredible
But what Bob
dudes,
Coleman, the story of Bob Coleman does,
in
addition to the fact that he's just a major contributor for the development of this young core of players, what he does is that he's actually developing the next core, because the Tigers would go to the World Series in 1940 and they would win the 1945 World Series.
Yeah.
So the 1940 were the continuing. A lot of the players that would go on to be the Tigers, talent in 1940. I mean, you still had a couple of guys that were still there from the 35 Tigers, but you also had a bunch of new guys, and those are the guys that Coleman's developing in Beaumont in, while the Tigers are doing their things in 35, 36, or 34, 35. So that's what I'm saying, is that this is a guy who is essential for the development of the Tigers, for their foundation, for their talent, their minor league development system, as well as the 1934, 35 championship teams.
You'd almost call
essential to them.
You'd almost call these things side stories. You'd almost call them like a side story, like they're almost insignificant, but they are very significant.
Part of the story.
But they are very significant, because without A, there's not B.
There's not.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
you also
what happened here was very, very what we talked about when what you delved into is very, very important.
I think so too, and that's what I mean. Is like that today was the day that I actually put these pieces together. So I love doing this show, because at the time I'm like, so I knew that Bob Coleman was like an important Class B manager for the Tigers. I knew that when I put this together, but I didn't understand, because they said that Bob Coleman was a coach for the Tigers in 32, and I was like looking up you're looking up all these things about why was Bob Coleman the manager of 32 Tigers. And there's no explanations.
Right.
No explanations.
No. What?
But until you see that the next year in 33, he's the manager of Beaumont. And then you start breaking down the timeline and understanding that Del Baker went to the Tigers in 33, and then he went to Beaumont. That's when you start to understand how the pieces all fit together.
So why does nobody give a crap about it? Well, it's a baseball team from, 95 years ago. Who cares? But you should care, because what's happening with the teams today? Where is it going today?
Well, the thing about caring about history is this: it's back to the
if you don't study history, you're going to repeat the same mistakes.
But the thing, that's one line. I think the way that I look at history is that if you learn about history, if you learn about the things that came before you, you're able to replicate what these people did. You understand what they did, and you can either replicate, or you can build upon their successes and reach for something higher than they once did. Yep. That's, to me, that's the history I love, which is the functional, the history that can serve as a purpose in the modern and future days. And so exactly when people say, anybody that's not interested, that says, well, I only care about the Tigers of today, that's fine. You can think that way. It's fine. But as far as having an opinion about why are the Tigers doing this? Why are the Tigers doing that? Without the history, but the substance of what came before and the lessons that should be learned from the past, all you're doing is you're blindly thrashing into the woods without any type of a guidebook that says, don't go into those woods. We've already done that and it failed. Or about this, we went that direction and it worked, so you should probably go that direction. Without having that previous historical foundation, you don't know. You have you're going blind. It's like current Tigers. That these same concept. It's the same concept. These current teams. If you're all you're doing is maybe you're successful, you may be successful trying something new or whatever it is like this, but why not base your current strategy based on the successes of the past and saying, well, that worked for them, but you know what, I'm not going to do that because I don't think it's right for the now, for what's going on now. Or that worked for them, maybe it'll work for us too. Maybe we'll take a piece of what they did. And the thing is that understand in that Detroit, understanding this other concept is that, especially in the world of sports, all these cities are different.
Oof.
There's different things that you need to, that there's different aspects to different franchise and different, different cities, different like sports markets. Some work for some cities and some don't work for others. Right. And to understand the history of Detroit, it's essential to know these stories if you give a crap whatsoever about the present and future of your franchises.
But if anybody says the city and the fans and the support does not impact the team, they're mistaken.
They're mistaken.
If they're just like,
mistaken.
If it's just, we're here, we're spending money, we're going to buy these players, we're going to do this thing. If you're not taking into account the climate of the city, the support of the fans, you're pissing into the wind.
And also the nature of the fans themselves, what makes up the fans, because
what's going to work in one city is not going to be 100%, what's going to make a champion 100%. In another.
So therefore, to understand the aspects,
not all of it, but part of it.
But to understand, if you're looking to build a successful franchise, a successful team, it's essential information for you to know what came before. So therefore, because the thing is, it's not to say that you have to copy what they did, but being informed about what worked in the past for this particular city and this particular franchise, what it does for you is gives you the option to say that was a good idea. They did something right. I should also emulate that. Or two, you could say that worked for them, but I don't think so. But it gives you an educated choice, right? It gives you an educated choice rather than not even having the information whatsoever, right? I think that's where the team leadership, that's where the media, like Dan Campbell and the Lions, I think they tapped into it just because of Dan Campbell's nature, because that nature of Dan Campbell, that is what these Lion teams were before.
Fuck yeah.
That's what they were before. And so just the nature of Campbell himself
I want more.
harkens back to these earlier eras that were successful. And I think that like they basically, I don't want to say lucked into it, because I think it may be like God's work helping us get there.
I'm going to argue with you in a minute.
But what I'm saying is that if the Lions would have looked into their history earlier on, they may have been able to say that's the kind of coach in culture ethos that we need to take that next level, and therefore look for a Dan Campbell type coach sooner rather than just hope to blindly stumble into what worked, at 20, 30 years, 50 years into their rebuilding, so, but anyways, yes, to understand what came before you have in the Tigers, you could extend that to understanding their history of their minor league foundation, their minor league system in the 1980s and the 1990s, and understanding which is my perception, my understanding is that the Detroit Tigers minor league system through the 80s and 90s deteriorated into a barrel of rotten apples that has never been dumped.
I don't spend a ton on that, but we'll do an episode on that and where it went. I'm really excited about next episode.
Next episode is gonna be awesome,
and where this turn took us. And so before then, what you got to do is one, appreciate our thank you for listening, and then two, like and subscribe, and tell somebody, subscribe to it. Like it, comments. We love the comments. We reply back and say hey, and so like, subscribe.
And anybody, let me just say this real quick.
There's like a fan mail button.
And let me just say this too. Anybody that's like our fan right now, I just want to say this for you right now. We know that we don't have like 8 million fans. We know that we're sort of a niche subject, okay? But I want to say this to you right now: is that one of these days, this show, like, there's people like this. They're like, if we get a movie thing signed or whatever like this. Whatever thing sparks is this story, the return of the story is inevitable. Okay. If I have to finance a movie myself to bring this story back, it is inevitable that this story is going to be massive, and I'm never going to stop doing this show. And I just want to say this: if you're a fan now and you're liking and you're commenting and you're participating in what we do right now, I just want to tell you that in the future, we got like 1 million fans or 10 million fans or whatever it is, and our super chat's going crazy and all this, like, you're not even need to super chat, and we're always going to spot you in the comments, and we're always going to remember you as the person who was there.
You do.
The people who were there first and rolling with us at the beginning.
You got to.
When nobody knew about this, and then we were like, and there was a small group of diehards that recognized how the value of this story, recognize the individual component value, like of all these people, like a Bob Coleman or whatever. And we're going to remember you too, because every single person right now, you mean the world to us for every single person that follows. And I swear to God that I am never like, whenever there's like a super chat thing or whatever in the future, that I'm going to pick out the people that from our early days, and you're going to be to me like family. And so I'm just saying, like, everything you do, everything, Chris, everybody in our chats, we love you guys, and everybody that likes and subscribes. And that you are our boys, man. Dan and everybody, like my sister, my dad, like everybody that comments and writes in, Curtis, my brother, everybody that jumps in and puts comments on.
Our
like,
guy.
yeah,
Who's
we are.
Guy? Who's our guy?
Yeah, no, we are all gonna be
our Portsmouth friends.
Oh, all of our Portsmouth friends, everybody, Tom, everybody, like everybody. It's
Tom,
like
it's
top of the list for everybody.
Top of the list, number one, top of the list, Tom.
Oh, absolutely, and Chris too.
Tom.
Chris is our top guy, man.
Tom.
And Dan too. Dan Farrell's in every episode. So that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying is that in the future, like I just like even if I have to finance this movie myself, which actually is my goal. But that's actually my business plan is to finance the movie. I'm not like I haven't even shopped the screenplay.
No.
I was talking to the lady today, and she's like, have you shopped the screenplay? I was like, no.
I don't want to screw it up.
I don't want anybody to take this thing and turn it into a crap movie. I'd rather do it, finance it myself. That's the way I think, So it's inevitable. You have the greatest season in the history of American sport,
the greatest hosts.
You have
oh wait,
I don't want to flatter. You are. I have one of the greatest hosts. I don't want to flatter myself like that.
I'm just messing.
But I will acknowledge that you are among the greatest hosts of all time.
I was sitting here drinking all night. So
yeah. Well, it's been but it's but you are. I would acknowledge that you are one of the greatest hosts of all time, Jamie.
Right,
yes,
thank you.
Yes, the show flows.
No, we're just having fun, dude. Tonight, here's the thing about today, these little nuggets of like nobody has ever blown the dust off of this like this, and
that's what I'm saying.
It's like beyond admirable to me to be here as you blow the dust off of this.
Well, that's what I was excited when we were doing the show. I'm like, this is a guy
as you're the archaeologist.
Yeah, but
blowing the dust off of it and finding these pieces of information.
But you're essential to this, Jamie. I couldn't just. I mean, there's being able to like explain this to you and conversate with you and have this whole show. You're an essential component. I wouldn't even be able to do this without you. And so what I'm saying is that you see now why I was excited about this guy about coming in. I'm like, because the book. I mean, I will read to you.
Yeah, well, you sent me the title. I'm like,
I'm gonna read to you.
Freaking who? But as I got into it, I'm like,
I'm going to read to you my section on Bob Coleman, and you tell me from this entire show we've done.
Hey there, Bob.
Right? Compare that to the show we've just done. Compare it to what I wrote in the book, and tell me the difference for how much jump we've learned from the book, right? Yeah. Hey there, this is my section on Bob Coleman, and I have the one picture where he's throwing the ball, where he's like a young player, and I also have that picture of the stadium. Those are the two pictures I have for Bob Coleman. So I say in the book, one name who repeatedly pops up in the origin stories of many Tiger players is Bob Coleman, a tough as nails former catcher from the Pittsburghs and the Cleveland Indians, 1916. In 1919, he began a managerial career which would last through 1957. In that span of years, he would become a legend in Evansville, Indiana, as a manager of the Tigers farm Class B team, the Evansville Hubs. In his 20-year career as the Hubs manager, his teams would win 8 pennants, 5 league titles, and be voted 3I League Manager of the Year in 1935, 37, 38, 41, 46, and 51. Such legends as Hank Greenberg, Eldon Walker, Tommy Bridges, Pete Fox, JoJo White, Charlie Root, and Warren Spahn benefited from the Coleman's tutelage in Evansville, while Walker credited Coleman for changing his delivery to his signature full submarine pitching motion. Once over the course of 35 minor league seasons, Coleman won 2,496 games while losing 2,103, which is a 54% win percentage. He also served as bench coach for the Tigers in 1932 and the Boston Braves in 1943. That's everything I got. That's everything I got. It's just straight stats. There's no connecting points or anything like that. I'm saying, like, that's what I had in the book. Right. Which is like, I mean, in fact, those are the things I wish I had on my notes that I forgot. So it's good that I read that because I just finished.
You know how much better this episode will be when you have your notes and we do it?
Well, yeah.
This was good.
But it was good. When I said, let's just wing it. You're like, well, let's maybe late the next one. No, let's wing it because I had a pretty good remembrance of the notes. But what I'm saying is that from what I just read to what we just discussed today
paragraph and a half
is a monumental leap. You know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, with a fresh pair of eyes and this show as a tool to like drag it out and say, today's episode is on Bob Coleman. Okay, well, who was this guy? You know, I mean, it was like kind of put me like, because when you're putting a book together, you got 8 million players and you're just laying information down and hitting print on the machine for a $12,000 book order. You're trying to get the book done and get it out and make sure you got the information on the guy and you're putting them out. And at the time, it's just like, at the time I'm looking at him like, you know, this guy is a key guy in this farm system. I knew that much, but I didn't know exactly how the mechanics of how he fit in. You know, I mean, I knew he had this. I mean, again, the reason I put him in is because he was mentioned so many times by so many players. And so that's why I was like, he's got to make this book. And so I'm glad he did, because it kind of, you know, we're revisiting him now and in finding a essential, you know, link in the chain for the Tigers minor league development system in its origin phase.
I just stoked about the next episode.
Del Baker's gonna be awesome
as we go.
Be fun, yeah.
And Del is the name's come up before, so I'm looking forward to taking it a little deeper. And
we got all kinds of stuff. I've got a magic eye for Del Baker.
Oh,
that's there's a magic eye with the where he's like waving a guy around third.
So we didn't talk about
like,
it today.
He's a magic eye of a third base coach where the magic eye is
him waving him through.
Is him waving a guy around third. It's awesome.
So we didn't talk about like the books, right? So you skimmed on that, and there's 3 books. There's a whole
trilogy.
It's like a big phone book deep trilogy of books. Information on this, if you're into it, DetroitCityOfChampions.com will lead you towards getting your hands on those books and then other merch, tintypes.
Yeah, and I also else like come into like 12 Oaks Mall or Partridge Creek Mall and just
if you're in the Metro Detroit area.
And just mention, if you're in the Metro Detroit area, come to 12 Oaks Mall in Novi or Partridge Creek Mall in Clinton Township. It's a great little Michigan art store. That's where I sell out of. I manage the stores.
But when you buy the trilogy of books and there's like in the package, there's a couple of little cool things. Yeah. As we went through today, I needed a couple bookmarks.
Well, I forgot the book with all my notes in it. I know.
With the notes. And you grabbed like some of the vintage bookmarks that come with.
Yes, I asked Jamie. I said I need a bookmark because I wanted to jump back to the Eldon Knocker quotes.
And I got some sticky notes.
Yeah, Jamie said I got sticky notes. I go, no. So I pulled out because these come with the books. The original book, the first book, which I included with the trilogy, of course. It comes with these 2 bookmarks.
Yeah.
And these 2 bookmarks, one's a magic eye of Hank Greenberg, and the other one's a magic eye of Charlie Gehringer turned into a double play.
Yeah.
So whenever I read a book, I always have 2 bookmarks. I have one that marks the page and one that marks the footnotes that I'm going through so I can see the references. So that's why I include 2 bookmarks with every book, right? It was just awesome because Jamie says, I said, I need a bookmark, for the page. And Jamie goes, I got a post note. I go, no, I got it because Jamie had his original trilogy here that I gave him. Yeah, and so I'm like, no,
I
Jamie,
keep it in
I got
the studio
the
to show off to everybody that comes through here.
Yeah, so I'm like, I got the
everybody
bookmarks
that comes
I get to use for the book, So
everybody that comes into the Podcast Your Voice studios, I'm like, hey, check this out.
Yeah, and I also want to point out one thing I was showing Jamie that Jamie got a kick out of.
T-shirt.
Well, and that's a great shirt. I love the olive green with it. That looks badass, Jamie. And so I want to point out one other thing that came with the book, which is which is this Goose Goslin holding a goose.
Try to zoom in on a little
bit
Goose.
More. This came with the book. I made my own baseball card for it, which is Goose Goslin holding a goose. And if you'll notice, the goose has a tie on his neck.
Isn't that crazy?
It's awesome. And I was showing Jamie. I said,
and what's
cool is this is one of
when you buy the trilogy.
Yeah, this comes with the book. And so what's awesome is that Goose Goslin's holding a goose. And then I was showing Jamie that there's like at least 5 other pictures, which are even better than this.
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do a super fan
Goose
episode.
Goslin. Yeah, we're gonna do super fan episode and the super fan episode on Goose Goslin. There's all these fans that have geese in their arms, and they're all goose fans. Yeah.
You can't talk about bringing your support animal.
Yeah,
it's like I'm gonna bring my support alligator to the game. It's like people are bringing these like goose to the game.
Well, the one picture I have is a guy.
How do you smuggle a goose in? You can't bring a pint of.
Well, they could.
Jameson's in.
No, you can't. That's because it's all sanitized,
like, son,
Jamie.
Lift up that goose. What? Do you have any booze under that goose? No. All right, go in.
Well, again,
it's like you're carrying that goose. Are you using that goose to smuggle booze in?
No. It's just,
all right, go ahead.
You
and your goose.
Then.
Go on in.
Go on in. Yes. Yeah, but as I'm saying is the game today is sanitized. If you wanted to bring a goose in today,
if you wanted to bring
you're out of your friggin' mind.
What about Gator Joe?
Yeah, you want to bring your own gator in?
Bring a damn gator in.
You think you could do that in today's game? No, hell no. And that's what I'm trying to say. that when you're talking
I'm
about
going to try to
Comerica,
bring a gator into the game.
it goes back to the moment that we had when we were talking about
Yes.
Comerica stuff.
Yes.
Comerica's a fine ballpark.
Yes.
I'm not trying to disagree with that.
No.
What I'm trying to say is that back in the sawdust and pint era where you had overflow fields, crowds on the field with police horseback keeping them back with a rope, back then that a guy could bring a goose into the game, and just like that picture I showed you, only have a goose in his arm, but he could have a toy goose on a rope and a goose call in his mouth and be doing a geese call with a goose and a toy goose in both hands.
And he was down there.
So that during the parade, he's pulling him through the parade.
And they're like, bring that guy with the goose and the rubber goose into the pit.
So that
I need to party with that guy.
And so imagine in the right
if I saw him in a crowd, I'd be like, wait.
Yes.
I need to party with that guy.
But here's the thing. Imagine the whole right field section where Goose Goslin is in the right field, and you have the entire section with geese calls, geese toys, and all this. The raucous environment and the fun that came out of that type of an environment that was organically interesting.
We talked about a couple of the games where it got rowdy and things were getting thrown on the field.
Yes, of course. There was the negative side of it too.
No,
sure.
But it was like it's like that.
It's part of the experience. Yeah,
to the 10th degree. Yeah.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that's baseball to me. Baseball to me is where it's not sanitized. It doesn't have that corporate sort of washed up. Nowadays, like what used to be one of my favorite things to do is to heckle people, right? I used to love heckling players on the other teams. Nowadays, you try to heckle anybody, and like there's like 300 people looking at you like some might think it's funny or whatever, but they're all filming you, and it's like this novelty, and it's like just so bizarre. It's like back in the day, it was an unsanitized, but people was sanitized, and they expect people used to dress in their Sunday best to go to the games. So they'd be in suit and ties, but they'd be a ruckus it would be like dirty dirt, but they would be in their suits and ties, and it was a totally different experience.
Hell yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say is that when we're talking about the modern day game versus then, it's my goal with my other project, with the baseball project, to bring back that unsanitized baseball that's not so, and I'm not even just talking about the fans, I'm talking about the style of baseball on the field today, is the game was never broke, and it got fixed anyways.
Yeah.
And so that is where I am at. You could summarize my entire.
The game was never broke.
Exactly.
I like that.
Whenever you're wondering about my perspective on anything,
that's gorgeous.
Whenever you're wondering about my perspective on baseball in any regard, with the fans, with the stadiums, with the players, with the game strategy, whatever like that, just that apply. Get that on. I might as well get that on a wristband that says the game was never broke, and it got fixed anyways. And so that is the way I feel about about every aspect of baseball today.
So I just one more time want to thank everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next episode. We got some great stuff to talk about. And no, that's it. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
And we're going to go.
I love it.
We're going to go. It's Detroit City Champions.